editorialize about Odysseus. Not a whole lot of questions can be written about those, as I discovered. But there will be questions in the contest about them. A whole lot of questions can be written about these. The epic conventions. And the actual conventions I have capitalized and bolded. They are invoking the muse, stating the theme in that invocation, starting in medias res, cataloging, extended formal speeches, epic simile, epithet, descent into the underworld. I have questions about every one of these in the contest. And you're probably going to spend the next few weeks figuring out how I'm going to ask a question about extended formal speeches on a slide. But I found a way. Questions about all 8 of these conventions will be in the contest. The last thing I said was you're probably going to spend some time trying to figure out how I'm going to ask a question anyway about extended formal speeches on a slide that's outside. But I found a way. And it was devilish. Okay. Invoking the muse. They need to know what a muse is. Okay? Actually, as I recently learned in ancient times, there was no particular muse that was referred to as the muse of epic poetry. That came later, not at the time Homer or whoever Homer was wrote down for the first time recorded the Odyssey. No particular muse is in mind. They may encounter that the muse of epic poetry is usually now named as Calliope. Okay? The same word we use for the circus organ. Okay? And there are 8 other muses that are her sisters. Okay? But they need to be aware of the idea that the poet calls upon the muse, calls upon the god, to tell the story. In fact, the way I used to teach it in class was, poets were believed to be inspired by the gods. And inspired means breathed into. That the poem itself will be breathed into the poet by the gods. Okay? And that's what the invocation of the muse is calling upon, prayer to the muse. What is it from in Aeneid? Of arms and the man I sing. And the invocation goes on from there, doesn't it? That's the statement of the theme. That's the Aeneid, that's right. Yeah. But the muse is not named. What I'm trying to get at is the muse is not named in this translation, or any translation that I'm familiar with, of the Odyssey. This theme statement, that this is not a theme like you might, if you're an English teacher, like you might teach theme to an AP class. It's the basic, we would probably say subject. It's the basic subject. You know, tell me, muse, the man of many ways. The man of many ways is Odysseus. That's the theme, it's craftiness. In medias res is Latin, it means in the middle of things. And the Odyssey does start in the middle of things. Lots of stories start in the middle of things. Lots of films start in the middle of things. Cataloging, nice fancy word, the AP teachers love, for listing. Okay. A list is a catalog. There is a list, for example, in the Iliad, of the 1,000 ships. It's actually more than 1,000. But it's not name by name. It's who sent the ships and how many they sent. Any of you read the Odyssey already in preparation? There are many catalogs in the Odyssey. Many catalogs. Look for them. Especially, a good place to look is in, I think book 10 is the descent into the underworld. What? 11? I'm so glad you're here. Book 11 has a lot of catalogs. It's where he goes down to hell. And has a hell of a time getting away. Extended formal speeches. When these people talk, they talk for a long time. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Baroque playwright Lope de Vega or Calderón de la Barca in Life is a Dream by Calderón. The speeches are, and I'm talking in small print on big pages, 2 or 3 pages long. The Odyssey lays them in the shade. Some of these characters talk for a long, long time. Okay, so an extended formal speech. For example, help me again, I think Book 9 is about where he starts telling his story about his travels. Book 9, 10, 11, and 12 are pretty much just Odysseus talking, uninterrupted. There might be one short interruption, but he's talking for a long, long time, telling his story. Epic simile, that's like a simile on steroids. An ordinary simile is he swims like a fish. In the Odyssey, it would be something like he swims like a fish chased by Triton, son of Poseidon, master of the sea, shaker of the earth, and going on and on and on. Perhaps you could tell a story about Triton or Poseidon. All of that's part of the simile. Okay? An epic simile goes on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 lines. Okay. And epithet, stock word or phrase, you know, we all have epithets if we have nicknames. If you have a nickname, you have an epithet. The famous epithets that I really miss from this translation: rosy-fingered dawn, the wine-dark sea. Rosy-fingered and wine-dark are epithets for the dawn and the sea, respectively. But you get epithets for people. Trying to think of a really good one now that's from the Fitzgerald translation. Pardon? Yeah, well, that's in the Iliad. But it's still good, and I was trying to think of one from the Odyssey. That's good. Hector, tamer of horses. Couldn't hear you. Raider of cities, yes. Thank you. Very good. And finally, descent into the underworld. Okay. Every epic, to be an epic, has to have a descent into the underworld. They have to go down, check something out. They're always going to learn something important, okay, from that. Now, I think, isn't my time about up? If you want to, just so you'll know these things are there, I thought this might help with Antigone. It's a family tree. And I am going to, because they are referenced in the poem, and one of the things you're responsible for are allusions. You may want to look, when you run into characters, you may want to look up their stories, especially if they don't belong in the story you're reading. Okay, if you run into a character who's mentioned by name, in the Antigone, for example, and this character, he or she, is not really part of the story, have your students look it up and learn that story, because I might want to ask a question about it. And I'm really sorry I didn't judge my time better. I hope you'll forgive me. You really want your students and you, this is 2 pages, this structure of Greek drama. It talks about prologue, parodos, episodes, chasm, strophe, antistrophe, or antistrophe, paean, exodus, exposition, climax, catastrophe. Wrong way. And the sticomythia, scanning, we'd say scene, catharsis, hubris, and arete. Learn about those. Those will be helpful for the structure of Greek drama questions, then there will be some. Look at your CDs, everything's there. If you've just come in, push come shove, you don't know, if you're willing to write this down before you leave, I'll give you my email address. RREN.K12.IN.US. Like many of the rest of your suffixes. Yes, ma'am. Oh, overarching in each No, you won't have to start talking.